have very dangerous escalations, including the entry of longer range missiles from Hamas from Lebanon, who entered the battle now with Hezbollah, and dangerous talks about Israeli escalation and occupation of parts of Lebanon. So yesterday we had the Minister of Education, or the day before, he was saying that, oh, we need to eliminate Lebanon. Lebanon will cease to exist. There's an undermining tone about Lebanon as a state now. It's no longer just Hezbollah. Of course, we know their garbage talk about, Hezbollah, like they used Hamas in Gaza to commit their heinous crimes against humanity and their barbaric acts of mass terror and genocide. But now they're not just stopping with Hezbollah. Now they're saying it's Lebanon. Firstly, Lebanon will cease to exist. We will annihilate Lebanon. Ministers in the government, that's not someone who was like an intellectual having an opinion or whatever. No, you're talking about people who run the show, who run the ideology. Like you have the ideology of Ben Gvir and Smotrich to completely ethnically cleanse the Palestinian people. You have people with this ideology and these things get implemented. You're talking about ideology that gets implemented. So today we have talks about undermining the state of Lebanon itself and the borders, because they were put in the time of Sykes-Picot between the French and the British, and then Israel extended them anyway, coming from another Israeli minister, and talking about the need to have a buffer zone. And again, it all starts with a buffer zone. They wanted to do the same thing with Egypt, expel the Palestinians so that they can create a buffer zone from Sinai and then occupy the whole of Egypt. And now they want to do that with Lebanon. Although the reaction that we had from Hezbollah does not reach the level of aggression that Israel committed in Lebanon. That's if we want to call this a response, by the way, because Hezbollah are not talking now. They're not talking too much. Small statements, but they haven't elaborated that this is a response for. So this could be an escalation for the day-to-day actions, because Israel wanted to change the equation. They wanted to create a new equation where Hezbollah would just completely stop and detach from Gaza and don't talk about the supporting front garbage. I want you to be on your own, and Gaza is a separate thing. But Hezbollah told them, no, we are a supporting front, and you need to stop the war in Gaza. You need to stop the war in Gaza for us to stop our resistance attacks against you, because we're in solidarity with Gaza. That's the main thing. Now, a couple of things we heard. Number one, Hezbollah said we are now in a phase of an open account battle. They're still not calling it a war, but in effect, we are at a stage of a war now, an open war. Maybe not the greater war or the great war, but we are at war. Why? Because the intensity of the strikes, the levels of the strikes, there are certain arguments that people can make. The strikes that they carried out in Beirut, well, they were more targeted and they didn't target the whole population in Beirut, for example. They only targeted the population in other parts. Not that that's an excuse, but some analysts might say that, to say, well, it's not yet an all-out war. And judging by Hezbollah's response, they're not breaking all of the tools. However, first and foremost, we need to establish a couple of things. We had over 500 martyrs in Lebanon, almost 600 in one day yesterday, and over 1,800 wounded. Israel did not kill more than approximately 1,200 in 33 days in 2006 in the Lebanon war. So what's happening now? By their immense barbaric genocide in Gaza, they are creating a new norm. They are raising the bar. It's normal to kill 600 people a day. It's totally fine to kill 1,000 people a day. And we won't get repercussions. No one will criticize us. Talk about mainstream media or the West in general or some of the Arab states. No harsh criticisms, slight tones. Let alone the abhorrent and depraved people who mock our brothers and sisters in Lebanon, facing a new genocide now. So they're killing in one day half of the total number they killed throughout the whole Second Lebanese War in 2006. What does that tell you? Well, if this continues, or if it continues with the same intensity, you're talking about another Gaza. You're talking about another Gaza. And Hezbollah, on the other hand, neither Israel nor Hezbollah are calling it an open war. Israel is calling it an operation. Hezbollah is calling it a battle, the battle of an open account battle. Meaning, we haven't yet decided to take out everything. Hezbollah previously said, Muhammad Ra'ad, one of their political figures, he said, if we want, we can cover the sun ray and sunlight from on top of Israel with missiles and smoke by the level of bombardment we can. We haven't seen that yet, but what we did see is an increase. Are Hezbollah increasing the day-to-day? That this is the most interesting thing here, because Israel wanted to create a new equation and take down these day-to-day activities of Hezbollah in solidarity with Gaza as a supporting front. But now Hezbollah, 300-400 missiles, a new missile every day. Now they've introduced another missile called Fadi 3, longer range, a higher explosive warhead. Are these just the day-to-day responses? That's the thing. They haven't said this is a response to the Israeli aggression on the 23rd of September. That would be a big problem for Israel. Why? Well, because you went on this operation promising your people that I'm going on this operation to stop Hezbollah and return the people back to the north. And what I've done in effect is put 3 million Israelis in bunkers. So that's not going to happen. And they're trying really hard with Hezbollah. Hezbollah launched 400 missiles today, including the Fadi 1 missile. And I'm just going to share some of these images with you. We'll get to that shortly. This is an area in North Israel. Look at the size of this missile. You're talking about really large missiles. And these are the effects of that missile. This video was taken by an Israeli. This is the landing. And then we can see a bigger radius of explosion. You're talking about a really heavy missile. Katyushas don't do that. Their previous missiles did not do that. This level of destruction per one missile. And they're using them, and that's afterwards, and they're using them on all of the areas they've already covered before, including the new areas. This was Kiryat Shmone. Look at the smoke, look at how many missiles, no Iron Dome, no nothing. At least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 missiles, at least 7 missiles landing, no Iron Dome, no nothing in that area, and including other parts. Now, these are Hamas members. Hamas said we launched 40 missiles from Lebanon on North Israel, including Haifa, the Nasher area in Haifa. And Israel said, and Al-Qassam brigades confirmed that one of their leading figures in Lebanon has been assassinated by Israel earlier on today. This is not new. Hamas operate in Lebanon. They carried out missile attacks on Israel from Lebanon. As a matter of fact, there was a reported ground invasion. There was a reported ground invasion by the PIJ and potentially Al-Qassam as well. That was early in the war to Israeli territory in the northern parts alongside the Lebanese borders. Now their missiles are reaching Haifa. What does that mean? They are expanding at the same level of Hezbollah and joining the Lebanon battle, the battle to defend Lebanon, Hamas, from Beirut and from South Lebanon, from all across Lebanon, and stand side by side with Hezbollah, even when it comes to the range of the cover. Now, of course, they operate hand in hand. Everything is coordinated, and there are other resistance movements in Lebanon who are fighting, but Hezbollah is, of course, leading them. and we have other fighters in the south as well. But the fact that Hamas is declaring that they are launching missiles at this capacity and this range on Israel is a very important message to Israel. Don't forget, they're still annihilating Israel in Rafah. Today we even had more resistance from them in Rafah, targeting the Israeli occupation forces. Meaning, you're not dismantling us in Gaza, and you're expanding our operations to Lebanon. This is what you got. And this is the problem that Israel does not comprehend. They constantly want the use of force. We want to use force against them. We need to eliminate them. Violence, blood, killing, oppression, expulsion. And they never addressed the core root cause of the problem, which is occupation, injustice, oppression, inequality. And we say this many times, you want to defeat Hamas? Get rid of all of the reasons they base their fighting and resistance to you upon. Resistance is a symptom, is an antidote to a problem, to a virus, a disease, call it whatever you like. Get rid of that disease. In this case, the disease is Zionism and what it has. We haven't seen a version of Zionism yet that is willing to live peacefully and with equal rights with the Palestinian people. If we had that, I don't think Hamas would have a problem. But the fact that they are only choosing the path of violence with them breeds more violence and more resistance and expansion of the operations. And this battle now is a very big indication and proof that that's only what's been happening because of continued Israeli inequality, oppression, aggression, genocides, and barbarism against the Palestinian people and against other nations surrounding them too. The days that we're living now are unprecedented. We haven't seen that before. Well, previous wars in Gaza, we didn't have this level of participation, let alone any participation. Now you have Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Yemen, even Iran, let alone, of course, the global campaign supporting the Palestinian people. So they're shooting themselves in the foot. They're not addressing the root causes of the problem, and they are only insisting on dealing with everything in violence. And Hamas are telling them, okay, well, we're not just in Gaza, and we're not just only going to remain in Gaza. We're going to expand our operations to Lebanon as well. This is what's happening. These are some of the Israeli attacks in the Beqa area, the Beqa Valley. Israel reportedly had over 600 strikes on Lebanon today. Not the same intensity that we had yesterday. Not the same intensity that we had yesterday. However, we had more attacks in Lebanon. And by the way, with Hezbollah's attacks today on Israel, approximately 400 missiles, they attacked very important warehouses of weapons when it comes to the IDF. They reached areas to the south of the city of Haifa. So that's becoming the norm now. They're telling Israel that's the norm. That's the day-to-day thing. You wanted this escalation. Accept the fact that the range is getting longer now, and you're probably going to have to get rid of more settlers from North Israel. But again, Israel turns a blind eye, and they continue with their blindness and bloodlust and barbarism. Then we had this person, Amichai Shikli. Amichai Shikli is the Minister of Diaspora in Israel. He had this tweet today, translated to English on the right side here. Lebanon, even though it has a flag, and even though it has political institutions, does not meet the definition of a country. Ooh, news. In the absence of monopoly on the exercise of power, both internally and externally, the Lebanese government is not a sovereign entity. The border with Lebanon, which is mostly inhabited by a hostile Shiite population, and not a hostile Zionist population below them, is effectively controlled by the Hezbollah organization, which on October the 8th started a war against the State of Israel. The organization, for those who forgot, was born with the landing of the Revolutionary Guards officers in the Beqa at the end of the First Lebanon War, and to this day it serves as a de facto militia operating with Iranian funding and direction. In a broader view, both Syria and Iraq do not currently meet the definitions of a state in light of the fact that different militias, foreign armies, and local military forces control different areas in the aforementioned countries. Well, by that definition, you had Zionist militias that were prescribed as terrorist organizations by the British mandate in Palestine that handed them that state. How ironic. Controlling a state based on a squatting terrorist organization. Organizations. And you're saying that about Lebanon. The drawing lines of Sykes-Picot, and we'll get to that in a sec, which were based on the distribution of areas of influence and the resources between Great Britain and France, did not survive the test of time. The sectarian religious fault lines, the topographical route and military power are the ones that shape the boundaries of truth between the different populations in the area. The current picture of reality, which led us to evacuate tens of thousands of residents from their homes for fear of both the organizations declared operative plans, and on the bitter experience on the Shiva in October events, that means the 7th of October, requires us to recalculate course regarding the borderline with the entity that calls itself Lebanon. Listen to the arrogance. And he shared this map. This map, these are the current maps here. Well, this is the occupied Golan Heights. Well, Trump handed it to them or gave them legitimacy. But this is what Israel sees as its borders with Lebanon. This is the Sykes-Picot line, based on Sykes-Picot, the names of British and French at the time, who cut the influence between them after World War I, or World War II, in that time. So to him, this was the Sykes-Picot line, and this is what the border looks like now, meaning, well, if we stretch it from here to there, we'll stretch it from here to up there. So what's happening exactly? Well, we have the Minister of Education, who should be enlightening people in Israel, yesterday saying we want to annihilate Lebanon will cease to exist. And now you have the Minister of Diaspora saying that it's basically not a state. Simple to them, you know. If you want to take any action against anyone, well, just doubt their legitimacy. And like we said all the time, it wasn't about any of these organizations. These organizations are used as fronts, as an excuse for their depravity and barbaric and neo-colonialist expansionist plans in the area that they commit through mass terror. And now they're admitting it. Now they are admitting it. So we have the Minister of Education, now the Minister of Diaspora, delegitimizing Lebanon, in effect, and Iraq and Syria too. And we have religious groups in Israel calling for settlements in South Lebanon. Why? Because to them they are biblical and important for the Jewish people. So they are preparing to carry out what they've carried out in Gaza, in effect. They're not stopping. We didn't have the same intensity that we had in Lebanon yesterday, but we had reports coming from European sources saying that the international, it's not the international community, the US and a couple of European countries who like to call themselves the international community very arrogantly, although they don't represent a mere 17% of the international community. They don't even represent their own populations, let alone the international community. Giving Israel 1 to 2 weeks to get rid of Hezbollah, or try and see if this escalation will stop Hezbollah from being an active front within the supporting fronts against Israel. And if that doesn't work, Israel has been given a green light to start the occupation process, or at least the invasion process. Listen, they're not going to occupy Lebanon, like they will not occupy Gaza. At least this time they didn't say that we want to eliminate Hezbollah, right? They didn't make the same mistake they did with Hamas. Why a mistake? Because they did it before in 2008. We want to dismantle, we want to eliminate Hamas. And then all of a sudden, at the end of the war, oh no, we don't want to eliminate them. We just want to affect or, harm their military capabilities. And then it was the accomplishment at the end of the war. We targeted 3,000 missile warehouses and all of their excuses. Now, at least they're not saying we're going to destroy Hezbollah in Lebanon, but they are showing intent of occupation, delegitimizing Lebanon, saying they will cease to exist, committing this barbaric mass state-sponsored terror, state-activated terror yesterday, supported by the US and other countries in Lebanon, killing over 500 people, 570, in one day, and wounding over 1,800 men, women, children. What is that? And some mainstream media outlets are legitimizing it as if it's fine. Israel might have to conduct an operation. Joe Biden now is giving them like, oh, we understand if they want to attack. If you want to understand if they attack, then understand the other people who want to resist. Simple. If you want to understand a genocidal terrorist entity committing all of these crimes ever since its establishment, but now, of course, it's on steroids, then expect what's coming for them. Now, with regards to the coming days, today, at least from the Israeli side, there was a reduction from the intensity that we saw yesterday. And with Hezbollah, they carried out calculated yet intense operations in Israel. Not saying it's a response. They haven't said it's a response against Israel, but not also saying that it's just the day-to-day thing. But from what it's looking like is the fact that it's basically just day-to-day responses. And they still haven't really done much when it comes to having a massive attack on Israel. Are they going to escalate? Or are they sending a message to Israel that we will not be dragged to Netanyahu's plans for an all-out war because this is what he wants? We don't know. But what we do know is we have an active state of war that Israel will most likely be increasing in the coming days.